بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنهم الحق صدق الله مولانا العظيم وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من ترك الكذب وهو باطل بني له في ربض الجنة ومن ترك المراء وهو محق بني له في وسط الجنة ومن حسن خلقه بني له في أعلى الجنة أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Every one of us may have been in a situation where after a heated exchange with your spouse, with your kids, with a stranger, with someone that you accidentally met along the way, and after things cool down, and then you just stop and you say, you know what, I think I lost my cool. I got carried away. I regret what I said. I shouldn't have, said all that I said. And then sometimes you apologize, but you just feel bad about how things had happened. And we all may be knowing someone in our circle, someone that we've come across, a mentor, an alim, someone along the line who, when you analyze his life and you think that this person just has this unique composure to him, that the most difficult situation is able to handle it with the greatest of ease. The most stressing circumstances, yet he's so calm. The most difficult people that he interacts with, yet he makes it look so easy. And you stop and you think, well, he's gifted, that's how he is, and I'm just different. And we leave it at that. But when we dig deeper and we analyze and we ask, what is it that he has that we perhaps don't have? Then the modern psychologists have broken down this and they say it is called emotional intelligence, or the intelligence of one's emotions, that you are able to gain greater understanding of your own emotion. And this is a great part of our own spiritual and physical reformation. Imam Ghazali rahimahumullah has a special chapter, Ma'rifatun Nafs. Yahya bin Mu'adh al-Razi rahimahullah said, Man arafa nafsahu, arafa rabbahu. That person who gains mastery over his nafs, it will take him to the recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah Rabbul Izzah says, Sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi wa fi anfusihim. We will show you our signs in the universe and within yourselves. The signs of Allah are within us, and that is the nafs. So when we talk about understanding the nafs and the various dimensions to the nafs, then one of that in the modern context is what is termed as emotional intelligence and intelligence of the emotion, or IQ, or that is EQ. Now what is EQ? Basically EQ is that a person understands his own emotion. And he uses this understanding to regulate his behavior. And he's able to pick up on emotions in those around him. That is in essence what it is. That as a human, there are different emotions that we experience at different times. As our honorable MC had made reference to a happy occasion. And that is a human emotion that we all experience. And we all desire it. It's the most desired state. And sometimes the search for happiness leaves us unhappy because we're searching for it in the wrong places. It's not something tailor-made that you can just adopt. It's as a result of your own actions that need to be taken to bring around that state of happiness. And there are other basic human emotions that we experience. Sadness. Sadness maybe is a result of something that has occurred. And it ought to be a transitory emotion, that for a period of time, someone passed away, your father, your brother, a child. It ought to be a temporary period, and then somehow Allah has made the system that life continues. And when sadness is not regulated, then you find people resorting to drugs, alcohol, self-medicating, which means prescription drugs, but they're taking it in a way that they've become addicted to it, to manage that sadness. Another human emotion that we have is the emotion of fear. Fear as a result of different things. Sometimes the threat is perceived, it's real, Or sometimes it's just imaginary. We're constantly fearing what's going to happen to this country. The country is going to the dogs. What's going to happen to the economy. And we create fear, and we live in this constant state of fear, which creates paranoia, stress, and undue difficulty for ourselves. Another human emotion is anger. And anger is usually targeted at something. As a result of someone else's behavior, sometimes we have anger at ourselves. Now, these are some of the basic human emotions that we have. And when we're speaking of emotional intelligence, then it is about picking up on these emotions within yourself. To ask yourself, what emotion am I experiencing? When someone said something to you, were you feeling undermined? Were you feeling belittled? Did you feel threatened? What was it that I felt at that time? And if we look at the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he had such mastery over his emotions that every time he was totally in control. Sayyidina Anas radiallahu anhu mentions that we were walking with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and out of the blue, a Bedouin comes and grabs him on his shawl and jerks him to the extent that he leaves an imprint on his body. This was a provocation out of nowhere. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stops, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam smiles and asks him, what is it that you want? And he says, give me from the money that Allah has given you. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tells the Sahaba that give him something that will make him happy. We could have responded, didn't your father teach you lessons? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam could have said, if you're not respectful to the Nabi of Allah, who will you respect? Don't you know Jibreel comes to show me and he shows me respect? But Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't do that. He smiled at the man. That was the mastery, that was the composure, that was the control of the emotions that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had taught us. And that is the one part of emotional intelligence. The second part of it is to be able to pick up on emotions in those around us. And because of the life that we live and the perceived or the created busyness that we have in our various business activities, we're almost running parallel lives. That it's almost like we're living in a hotel where everyone's in the same place, everyone's in the same residence, yet each one is in their own life, in their own bubble, on their own. The only time we're connecting is to the same Wi-Fi. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam praised the Sahaba, that is, he picked up on the various good qualities that they had. And he was acutely aware of the emotions of those who were around him. He knew what they were experiencing in terms of emotion. That's why one day, Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha narrates, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to her and said, Inni la a'arifu idha kunti anni radiyatan wa idha kunti alayya ghidba. I know well, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is telling Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha, I know well when you are happy with me and when you are angry with me. Now, for us, don't take on the challenge because you may embarrass yourself. There was this husband and wife who the wife felt that the husband wasn't attentive to her, wasn't paying attention, wasn't, giving her that attention that she wanted and, connecting with her. So she decided that maybe I'll get him to be more focused on me by giving him the silent treatment. So she put it in practice. For one whole week, she gave him the silent treatment. And after 1 week, she now waited for the opportune time and she said that, have you noticed anything about us lately? And without skipping the beat, the husband says, yes, we're getting along very well lately. So that is how disconnected we are with one another. That we don't even know what's happening in our son's life, what's happening in our daughter's life, that there may be someone in their class who's troubling them. We're all just in our own bubble. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tells Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha, Inni la a'arifu idha kunti anni radiyatan wa idha kunti alayya ghadba. I know when you are happy with me and I know when you're angry with me. It's a challenge. So Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha is intrigued. Where's the support? Where's the proof? So she asks, Min ayna ta'rifu dhalik? Oh Nabi Allah, how do you know that? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, Idha kunti anni radiyatan taquli la wa rabbi Muhammad. وَإِذَا كُنْتِ عَلَيَّ غَضْبَا تَقُولِي لَا وَرَبِّ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. When you are happy with me, then in your speech you say, by the oath of the Rabb of Muhammad. And when you are angry with me, then you say, La wa Rabbi Ibrahim, by the oath of the Rabb of Ibrahim. So, realizing that she's been caught out, she says, Oh Nabi Allah, La ahjuru illa ismak. I only leave your name, meaning your love is still deeply entrenched in my heart. And that is the reality, that there will be moments in married life where there will be conflict. There will be moments where one party will say something, the other one will say something else. And it is for us to learn to regulate our own emotions, to be able to control our emotions. And where does that start, that control of our emotions? It starts with self-awareness. That you need to be able to understand, the emotion that you experience at every time. We don't pay much attention to that. So we have two systems. We have our thinking system and we have our automated system. And what does this mean? If someone had to, traveling to Vryheid this morning for the first time, you don't know the road. So you're following the garment, you're looking out for landmarks. Along the way, you're checking out for different things, different signs, and like that, you'll come to Vryheid. You'll come to the farm because it's a new road. So you're constantly thinking. On the other hand, we have our automated system as humans. And Allah has made this possible for us so that every task doesn't become tedious. Now, from the Vryheid farm, if Maulana Masihullah has to go to Vryheid town, and when he reaches the town, he goes and he does his work, he drives to the garage or anywhere, and you ask him, Maulana, you passed that robot there, was it green or red? I don't even know, I didn't check. But you passed the robot, you must be knowing. He says, no, I can't remember. Because he's been doing that all the time. So he's accustomed to it, so he doesn't have to take note of the basic things that are there. He's busy thinking about the students that have to read their sabak in the afternoon, and that one guy in the class, he didn't know his work. That's on his mind at that time. So, same as humans, every action of ours, it falls between thinking or automated. And many times we start our salah and we go into the automated mode. And the only time we realize that we finish our salah is when the imam is saying, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and the entire salah has passed. So much of our habits and the way we conduct ourselves falls in that automated system. And that is where we need to break that routine. When anything happens, you can either react or you can respond. React is when there's something that happens and there's an external stimulus and you respond to that without thinking. Then that is an reaction. A response is where you think for a moment. You develop a break state between that which occurred and how you are going to respond to that. And that is what the Messenger ﷺ had taught us. When you're angry, if you're standing, sit down. If you're sitting, lie down. Make wudu. Nabi ﷺ said that he saw two people angry and he said that this anger is from the fire and water extinguishes it. So Nabi ﷺ advised to make wudu. Now, we need to be able to develop that break state between that which makes us angry and our response. So someone had given advice and he said, if the person who makes you angry is your junior, count till 10 and then respond. If the person is your equal, count till 20 then respond. If the person is your senior, count till 50 and then respond. And if it's your wife, keep counting and don't respond. Keep counting and don't respond. There was this unique situation that came about where a police officer had come on a scene. And he then called into his sergeant and he said, Sergeant, I have the most unique case. So the sergeant asked, what happened? He says, no, a lady has shot her husband for walking on the floor that she just mopped. So the sergeant says, but officer, have you arrested the lady? So the officer says, no, sergeant, the floor is still wet. So this is unbridled anger. That when we don't control our anger. And conflict in life is part and parcel of life. There's no person that can pass through the life of this world without conflict. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also had conflict with his Azwaj Mutahara. There was conflict amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhum in their marriages and in their interpersonal relationships. That is part and parcel. And sometimes through conflict, we can actually build stronger relationships. So conflict cannot be eliminated, but we need to equip ourselves with tools as to how do you handle conflict. And the most important advice in that regard is, and in this regard, is to control one's anger. To be able to learn to control that. And talking of controlling one's anger, from my marhum father, Maulana Hanif, may Allah have mercy upon him, one of the most important lessons that he had imparted onto us as his children was the control of anger. And he always watched out for us to say that, I think you overstepped the mark, you got carried away at this point. And this was the lesson that he had learned from his mentor, Hazraji Maulana Masihullah Jalalabadi rahimahullah. When you read his works, there's a great deal of emphasis on the controlling of one's anger. And when we talk of Hazraji Maulana Masihullah rahimahullah, then that is where it all goes back. That's where the story starts. It was when my father and his honorable brother Maulana Musa Damat Barakatuh had studied in Jalalabad, and that is where they met the outstanding personality, Maulana Ismail rahimahumullah. And they were so impressed with him. They were in awe of him, and they really liked him as a person that they actually got him married to their sister. And the rest is history, as they say. And alhamdulillah, wherever we go in the country, where we travel to Pumalanga, travel to parts of KZN, and people come up to me and they say that, who's Appa to you? And I say, Appa is my foy. Now I ask, how do you know that? And they say, no, it's the similarity to Maulana Masihullah, Maulana Ahmad, Hafiz Taha, Hafiz Salih, Maulana Safwan, Maulana Fasiullah. And that is the legacy that continues from that beginning. May Allah Rabbul Izzah continue to utilize this institute, and may Allah Rabbul Izzah make the work continue. So that lesson that we learned is with regards to controlling one's emotion. And it's all, the starting point is anger, unbridled anger. Now conflict will take place. Shubayb ibn Shuhaib rahimahumullah said that whoever sami'a shay'an yakrahuhu, if you hear something you dislike, fasakata, and you keep quiet, then inqata'a anhu ma yakrahu, then that which you disliked will end. That which you disliked will end. But if you ajaba, if you respond, then you'll hear more about what you dislike. So if there's something that happened and you don't say anything, then you don't have, the argument will terminate at that point. There was this husband and wife, where the wife had the problem. And arguments come about is various reasons. And sometimes you leave things, it's either understanding, misunderstanding, unfulfilled expectations, maybe different values, different ideas. So this husband had the habit that whenever he would open the toothpaste to brush his teeth, he wouldn't put the lid back. And it always troubled his wife. That why don't you close the toothpaste? Why don't you close the toothpaste? So he was married for 21 years. After 21 years, he, stopped and he said, you know what? My wife has been good to me. She's always asking me to close the toothpaste. I'm going to close the toothpaste. So he closes the toothpaste. Now he's waiting for her to say, mashallah, shabas. So he waits. After 1 week, dinner time, supper time, he's sitting on a table, and his wife tells him, but you haven't brushed your teeth for 1 week. So conflict doesn't come out of nowhere. There's always something brewing, and we need to learn to manage that. And the best advice is the advice of Ahnaf ibn Qais at-Tamimi rahimahumullah. Someone came to him, and he was considered as the gold standard of tolerance. And someone said to him, he said that, in qulta wahida, if you tell me one thing, I will tell you 10. If you tell me one thing, I will tell you 10. So he told the man, if you tell me 10 things, you won't hear one from me. If you tell me 10 things, you won't hear one from me. So to be able to control oneself at that time. And then, at a later stage, in the heat of the argument, to be able to remain silent at that time. And when things have calmed down, when the time is opportune, then you can then address the issue. And Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha also looked out for the opportune time. She says that I one day looked and I saw Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in a good mood. So obviously she was the lady of the akhirah. And she said, oh Nabi Allah, make dua for me. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made dua for her. Allahumma ghfir li Aishata ma taqaddama min dhanbiha wa ma ta'akharat wa ma a'lanat wa ma asarrat. Oh Allah, forgive Aisha all her past sins, all her future sins, what she did openly, what she did secretly. And she was so elated, she literally jumped for joy. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked her, oh Aisha, are you happy with my dua? And she said, why not, O Nabi of Allah? I'm very happy with the dua. And then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Innaha la da'wati li ummati ba'da kulli salah. This is the dua that I make for my ummah after every salah. So she waited for an opportune time and then she asked what was her need. The point is that there will be arguments and then there will be a cooling off period. The issues need to be addressed during that time. But in the heat of the moment, nothing gets sorted out. And for our honorable groom today, my one word of advice is, as we terminate, is that in every argument, the wife has the last word. And anything you say after that is the beginning of a new argument. Remember that, and you'll have a happy marriage, inshallah.